But to start off, I want to introduce myself. My name is Jess Doro. I am a member specialist here at the MLC, and I'm joined today by my colleague Taylor. So she is a payment specialist with us. This is a reminder to put all of your questions in the Q&A box, not in the chat. If they're in the chat, we're likely not going to see them and not going to get around to answering them. So please put any questions in the Q&A box. And with that, we will get started. So the MLC was created and establishes and maintains a public database of musical works ownership information. We administer a new blanket license covering mechanical rights available to eligible digital audio services operating in the United States. We receive and match sound recording usage reporting data from those digital audio services with the MLC's musical works ownership data. So that's the data that you, our members, provide to us. And then lastly on here, we collect and distribute US digital audio mechanical royalties to music publishers, administrators, foreign CMOs, and self-administered songwriters, composers, and lyricists.
Awesome. So now I'm going to cover what the MLC does not do. So first of all, the MLC does not administer performance rights for musical works or collect performance royalties. You can see at the bottom that the MLC does not replace PROs. So that's very important to know because they collect a different royalty. The MLC does not administer digital performance rights for sound recordings or collect digital performance royalties. So you can see at the bottom that the MLC does not replace Sound Exchange, which collects digital performance royalties for the recording. The MLC does not administer mechanical rights or collect mechanical royalties for physical products. The MLC does not administer any licenses or collect any royalties related to the use of musical works in audiovisual products. And finally, the MLC does not administer licenses or collect royalties for the use of musical works outside of the United States.
All right, great. Thank you, Taylor. So now we're going to move on to the Q&A section here. So if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box. Right now, we will give you guys a few minutes just to put those in there. And then we can answer any questions that come in. I think we have a very, very quiet bunch today, not many questions. That's perfectly fine. If there's anything that comes to mind, you can reach out to our support team. We'll put their information in the chat here as well. The chat team or the support team is available Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can reach out via phone, chat, or a contact us form, and someone will be able to assist you there. All right, a couple of questions have popped in now, so we can get around to answering these. All right, so first question here is, how does the MLC work with publishers? So we work with publishers. It's basically the same way that we work with self-administered songwriters. Essentially, the publisher or administrator signs up as a member of the MLC. They would then register the works that they publish or administer, and then again, the MLC does that work of matching those works to the sound recordings that the DSP sent us. And then we distribute royalties to the publisher, who then in turn would distribute royalties to the songwriter that is signed to them.
Awesome. I'm going to answer a question from Corey. Is it better to create a publishing company to get your music placed in sync placements? So as we covered in the last slide, the MLC does not administer any royalties related to audiovisual products. So that's what sync is referring to, synchronization. So I can tell you what that would look like from an MLC perspective. If you are a self-administered songwriter or a publisher, you should create a member account with the MLC so you can collect royalties from the MLC. And If you have a publishing entity established already, maybe you established a legal entity, or maybe you just have a name that you use for your PRO, you can create your member account in that name to collect the digital audio mechanical royalties from the MLC. But again, the MLC does not relate to sync royalties or collect any audiovisual royalties.
This question here, how does this concern beats? That's a very great question, Christine. We actually just had a webinar yesterday that pertained to beat makers. So that might be something cool for you to check out. But essentially, this comes down to whether or not, as the owner of that beat, if you're getting copyright credit on that entire work itself, or if those beats were just purchased outright, then you might not have any copyright ownership to the work. So you're going to want to kind of look into the agreements that were made. And also, yeah, so I've just been told here that you can watch that webinar on YouTube in the next 24 hours. So you might need to wait a little bit, but definitely go check us out on YouTube, follow us, and that webinar can give you some more information very specific to beats and how that works with the MLC.
Awesome. So I'm going to answer a question from Elizabeth. I registered new songs with CD Baby and they are getting played worldwide. However, I am seeing them in MLC, but getting a message that no recordings are found. So it sounds like CD Baby is acting as your publishing administrator. So that's why you are seeing those works appear in the MLC database with CD Baby as the publisher. I recommend contacting CD Baby since they are acting as your administrator and they are the ones that need to take action to possibly use the matching tool to ensure that all recordings are matched to your musical work. So I definitely recommend reaching out to them. But as Elizabeth noted, she can see that information in the public work search. So she can, even if she's not the one that's the member or administering her own work, she's still able to see her works data in the public work search, which is accessible to anyone. So yes, Elizabeth, I definitely recommend reaching out to CD Baby.
This question is, can the MLC be used in place of a publishing administrator? This is a really good question. A lot of people get kind of caught up on this. So I just want to be clear that the MLC is not a publishing administrator. We are a collective that distributes one type of royalty stream. If you do have a publishing administrator, depending on the specifics of your agreement with them, they would be registering works for you at multiple different similar collectives to the MLC. So use in place is not necessarily the correct term there. You don't have to have a publisher or an administrator to sign up with the MLC. You can do that directly, but just keep in mind that the MLC only distributes digital audio mechanical royalties in the United States. So if you're considering whether or not to use an administrator or not, just keep that in mind. There's definitely more revenue streams out there than just digital audio mechanical royalties. So you want to make sure that you're collecting from all of those sources.
Got a question from Eldrick. I have a song registered on MLC with a co-writer. The publishing percentage info is incorrect for my co-writer and I am unable to change it. How do I get that information updated? So if you notice that your co-writer, co-publisher is over-claiming and you are not able to claim your proper share, then I recommend contacting the MLC support team because we will need to help you dispute that conflict. So that's considered, if you are unable to claim your full share because someone is already claiming part of that share, then you should contact our support team and we can help you with that.
Okay, so Savannah is asking for just a kind of a timeline of how the MLC fits into the to-do list of a songwriter releasing their own songs. So she happens to be with BMI and knows that at some point the songs get registered there too. So that's a really great question, Savannah. Basically, the answer to this is that works need to be registered both with your PRO, so BMI in this case, and with the MLC in order for you to be collecting on both of those revenue streams. It's kind of up to you whenever you decide to do this timeline-wise. If you know the information about the work before it's being released, it's probably best to get it registered before that release date, just to make sure that you're collecting on all of those royalties basically as the streaming is happening. But yeah, you'd want to make sure that you're registering the work multiple places, essentially at all the places where you need to be collecting royalties from. The MLC does not get information from any of the PROs. So just because you've registered something at BMI does not mean that it's going to come over and be registered with the MLC. That's a separate registration process. So yeah, hopefully that helps answer your question there.
I've got a question from Corey. If I am self-published, then decide to create a publishing company, would I be able to align my prior works under my new company at the MLC? So it sounds like you may or may not already be a member of the MLC, but if you are not already a member, then you can create a member account in the name of your new publishing company. It doesn't have to be a legal entity. It can just be, if you could make it Corey Music, it could be whatever you want it to be. But if you create a publishing company, you should register any works that your publishing company administers with the MLC. I hope that answers.
Yeah, and just to kind of jump off of that, if you already are a member and you've created your member under just like your writer name, but now what you're saying is you've gone ahead and you've created this publisher entity, we can definitely help you with changing your member name. Just reach out to our support team, let them know what your current member name is and what you would like it to be, and they can help you out there. Okay. So there's another question here about where these digital audio mechanical royalties come from. And asking for some examples. So some of the biggest examples would be Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, Tidal, all of those major music streaming services, but there are also a lot of other smaller ones. So we actually do post on our website all of the DSP notices we receive to use the blanket license. So you can always check that out. We can throw a link in the chat there. So you can see all of the digital service providers that utilize the blanket license. And those would be the sources where the mechanical royalties are coming from.
I've got two questions from Jeffrey. One is, how often is the payout? The MLC distributes royalties on a monthly basis. It typically falls around the 13th or 14th of the month. We have a distribution scheduled for tomorrow. So the target date is a little bit different every month, but the MLC pays on a 75-day payment cycle. So that means that the royalties that are generated in a particular month are paid out 75 days later. So tomorrow's distribution is actually for royalties that were generated in January. But the answer to your question is that we pay out monthly. The other question from Jeffrey is, how does the pub and the writing membership link? Is it two different entities? And I think and someone else asked that similar question in the chat as well. It sounds like you are wondering if you could need to be both a publisher and a writer member. So the MLC only requires you to be a member as the publisher. So members should be self-administered songwriters, publishers, administrators, and CMOs. So you don't need to be a member as both a publisher and a writer. And that is because the MLC only collects publishing royalties. I think this is commonly confused because at the PROs, at the performing rights organizations, they have both an option for a writer share and a publisher share. That is not the case at the MLC. So if you are a self-administered songwriter, all you need to do is create a member for your publishing entity, and you can collect if you are the sole copyright owner of a work, you should collect 100% for that work.
All right, we have a question from John, who distributes via CD Baby. So he's asking if he can still register the songs with the MLC. So that's going to depend on whether or not you have signed up for CD Baby's publishing administration program. So please check with CD Baby on that to see if that's something that they're doing on your behalf at the MLC. And then, oh, you can take this one, Taylor.
Okay, we've got another question about CD Baby from Savannah. If CD Baby distributes my songs, does that mean I should not do anything with those songs on the MLC? And again, just like Jess said, you should definitely contact CD Baby to confirm the details of your agreement with them, because you could have just a distribution deal with them, or you could have a publishing administration deal with them. I think they refer to it as CD Baby Pro Publishing. So I would make sure that your publishing administration is covered by them. Okay, and I see that you said that you don't use that service. So that means that if you don't have anyone else administering your publishing for mechanical royalties, then you should register with the MLC and register those works. So you are responsible for doing that if CD Baby only distributes your your works. Second part of that question is, if I release cover songs, is that something that I would be registering with the MLC? And the answer is no. If you are recording a cover of a composition that you did not write, then you would not be able to collect from the MLC on that recording, because the MLC only pays for composition royalties. And if you don't own the composition, then you should not be registering that work with the MLC, because you won't be able to collect on it.
The next question is about how Harry Fox fits into all of this. So Harry Fox is actually a vendor of the MLC. They help us create and maintain the database. So that is our specific relationship with Harry Fox. Harry Fox still continues to do some additional licensing work directly through them. But basically, the MLC has replaced the digital audio mechanical royalty licensing side of things. So if you used Harry Fox for that in the past, again, the digital audio mechanical licensing is going to still be done through the MLC. Harry Fox does still do some other types of licensing, so that might be specific to physical or sync or things of that sort. So that's kind of how they fit into our business.
Okay, so a question from John. Once the publisher is paid, the publisher then pays songwriters what type of royalties, such as mechanical or et cetera? So again, the MLC only collects one type of royalty, and that is the digital audio mechanical royalty. The publisher who is collecting on behalf of songwriters is responsible for paying out to those songwriters based on the details of their specific agreement. So the MLC doesn't have any insight into those agreement details. So the publisher is responsible for paying those songwriters.
All right. Not seeing any more questions in the Q&A box just yet. If anyone has a couple, you got the last couple minutes here to do it. But thank you everyone for joining us today. And here they are, here they come. How does Song Trust work with the MLC? Do they register on the songwriter's behalf? Yeah, so if you use Song Trust as your administrator, then Song Trust is an MLC member, and they would register your works at the MLC on your behalf.
Nice. A question from Elizabeth. Do administrators have to pay publishers? To clarify for anyone who doesn't know, an administrator is typically someone who basically manages an account in the MLC for and collects those royalties, and then they need to pay any parties that they have agreements with that they are administering on behalf of. So yes, and depending on the details of the agreement, the administrator would have to pay the publisher any royalties they collect from the MLC.
Got a question on how does one get a producer credit? So I believe this is actually more of a question around master royalties for the sound recording than necessarily a mechanical. Sometimes producers are given a certain copyright percentage to a work, but that would be something that would be specifically discussed with all of the writers on the work and agreed to. So that's how you would figure that out for the mechanical side of things.
Question from Jonathan. I have pending royalties, but did not load banking info. Will I get those royalties? Yes. Every month we have that distribution. Members have until the 7th of the month to enter banking and tax information, and everyone has to enter banking and tax information in order to get paid. So Jonathan, as long as you update your banking and tax information before May 7th, you can get paid in the May distribution. So just make sure you do that. Currently you're unable to do it until the 15th. So it's April 15th, log on. And the reason we do that is because we want to prevent any last minute changes while we're in the middle of a distribution. So yep, Jonathan, you can just log into your portal, click view member, and then go to banking information on the left-hand side and contact us if you run into any issues.
So we have a question about basically, are we just registering the composition? Do we have to register every live or recorded version separately with the MLC? So what you're referring to there as far as versions would probably be the different maybe types of sound recordings. So again, yeah, you're only registering the underlying composition at the MLC. If there were to be a different version of the work that maybe has different writer splits or publishing splits on it, then that should be registered as a separate work at the MLC. But if you're just talking about, various recordings of that same underlying work, then no, you don't need to register those as separate works at the MLC.
Okay, a question from Jeffrey. Is there any discrepancy between your registered works and the works that come up in the claim search? I feel like there's so much I'm leaving out, but they're out there, but I am unsure of how to claim for it all. Okay, so it sounds like you are looking at both your catalog, your registered works, and you're also using the claiming tool. And for anyone that doesn't know, the claiming tool is a way for members to claim shares on works that already exist in the database. So this might happen for a couple of reasons. Maybe you co-wrote a song with someone else, they already registered their share in the work, but you still have to register your share in the work. So if you see that works are coming up in the claiming tool without your shares on them, and that you have shares in those works, you should claim shares in those works, and you should claim the proper share that you have. So if they're coming up in the claiming tool and you see that your share is not yet on that work, you do need to take action there. So yeah, I definitely recommend continuing to utilize that tool. We have some good resources on our website if you need more help, and you can also contact support.
We have a question about how Sound Exchange works in conjunction with the MLC. There's not really an in conjunction there. The difference between the MLC and Sound Exchange, or one of the major differences, is that Sound Exchange is collecting and distributing royalties for the master recording. The MLC is collecting and distributing royalties for the underlying musical work or composition. So essentially, if you are a DIY artist who is a self-administered songwriter, you want to make sure that you're connected with both Sound Exchange and the MLC.
All right, another question. What's the story with public domain arrangements? So for anyone that doesn't know, public domain means that there's no longer any copyright protection on that song, that composition. But if you make an arrangement of a public domain composition, you may be entitled to royalties. The MLC is not able to determine what constitutes an arrangement or a derivative work, but in the MLC work registration process, you do have the ability to add your writer role as an arranger. So you can register that work, you can add the original songwriter, whoever that may be, but you can also add yourself as the arranger on the work. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. If we didn't get to your question, or if you have new ones that pop up, please reach out to our support team. And as you exit out today, please let us know in the chat how you liked the webinar. And we look forward to speaking with some of you in the future. Bye, everyone.
Have a good one.